What if the future of Formula One hinged on just one driver's decision? Behind Max Verstappen's ironclad contract lies a secret clause that could flip the entire grid on its head. And every team boss knows it. Mercedes is stalling, Red Bull is on edge, and George Russell is caught in the middle of it all. This isn't just about contracts, it's a high-stakes game of timing, power, and ambition. And it's already reshaping the driver market. Part 1. The hidden power behind Verstappen's contract. On paper, Max Verstappen is locked into Red Bull Racing until the end of the 2028 season. It sounds like an unbreakable commitment, one that should guarantee long-term stability for the reigning champion and his team. But beneath the surface lies a little-known clause that could change everything. This isn't just legal fine print, it's a performance-based escape hatch that has the potential to shift the power dynamic of the entire Formula One grid. According to well-placed sources, Verstappen's contract includes a specific condition. If he finds himself outside the top 2 in the Drivers' Championship by the summer break, he has the option to walk away from Red Bull. Now, this doesn't mean he'll automatically leave if he's sitting in 3rd or 4th place come mid-season, but it opens a door, and rival teams are well aware of that possibility. In a sport where fractions of a second matter, the idea that Verstappen could be available is enough to halt negotiations, scramble strategies, and shake the confidence of entire organizations. What makes this clause so powerful is not just its legal implications, but the psychological weight it carries. Every race leading up to the summer becomes a pressure point. Every underwhelming finish a potential push toward the exit. Red Bull knows it, so do Mercedes and Aston Martin. And suddenly, Verstappen's contract isn't just a deal, it's the axis around which the entire driver market begins to spin. In a sport obsessed with performance, this clause gives Max the leverage of a free agent without ever having to announce it. The question now is, will he actually use it? Part 2. Why the entire driver market is frozen. The Formula One driver market is a complex puzzle, usually driven by contracts, negotiations, and team needs. But in 2024, it's something else entirely. It's frozen. And at the center of that freeze is one name, Max Verstappen. While other drivers wait for calls and contracts, the entire market is holding its breath to see what Max will do. Because the possibility that Verstappen could activate his exit clause and walk away from Red Bull this summer has every top-tier team in a holding pattern. Most notably, Mercedes. George Russell, for instance, is technically a free agent at the end of the season. Despite performing exceptionally well and being Mercedes' current #1 driver after Lewis Hamilton's departure, he remains unsigned. Not because he lacks talent or results, but because his team is waiting to see if Verstappen becomes available. And that wait is creating an unprecedented traffic jam in the driver market. Yes, until there's clarity on Verstappen's status, no top team wants to make a move they might regret. This isn't just impacting Russell, it's affecting dozens of drivers across the grid. From established veterans to rising stars, everyone is caught in a holding pattern. Even contract negotiations that would normally be straightforward are now complex and strategic. No one wants to commit to a deal that might block them from reacting if the Verstappen domino falls. And that's why the paddock is filled with whispers and uncertainty. Teams are watching, waiting, calculating, because until Max decides whether to stay or go, no one else can move. The grid isn't just racing anymore, it's bracing. Part 3. Mercedes' calculated gamble. Toto Wolff, the mastermind behind Mercedes' modern Formula One dynasty, is no stranger to high-stakes decisions. But this one might be his most delicate yet. With George Russell performing at a career-best level and still unsigned for next season, many fans are asking, what's the delay? The answer lies in Max Verstappen's contract and the window it may open. Wolff is playing a dangerous but potentially rewarding game, pausing Russell's renewal in case Verstappen becomes available. It's a calculated gamble, but one with massive consequences. On the surface, it may look like Mercedes is disrespecting Russell. Here's a driver who stepped up in Lewis Hamilton's absence, assumed leadership of the team, and delivered solid results. But in Wolff's eyes, Failing to explore Verstappen would be a bigger mistake. After all, how often does the most dominant driver in the sport quietly become available? Verstappen isn't just fast. He's a generational talent with proven championship pedigree. And signing him wouldn't just strengthen Mercedes, it would weaken their biggest rival, Red Bull. The flip side? Time is ticking. By delaying Russell's deal, Mercedes risks alienating their current number one driver. Worse, they could find themselves without either driver if Verstappen stays at Red Bull and Russell decides to explore other options out of frustration. The tension is real, and every week without a signature increases the pressure. Wolff knows this is a game of chess, not checkers. But if he waits too long, he could lose more than he bargained for. For now, Mercedes is gambling on silence and hoping Verstappen blinks first. Part 4, Russell's rising stock meets uncertainty. George Russell is riding the highest wave of his Formula One career. He's Mercedes' lead driver in a post-Hamilton era, consistently outperforming expectations and asserting himself as one of the sport's top talents. Yet, paradoxically, he's also in one of the most uncertain positions on the grid. How does a driver with rising stock, top-tier machinery, and no contract for next season end up stuck in limbo? The answer lies in forces beyond his control, namely Max Verstappen. Russell's performance has been exceptional. In many ways, he's done everything right. He's fast, consistent, and vocal in the garage. He's embraced leadership, adapted to pressure, and stayed composed. But as long as Mercedes sees even a flicker of a chance to land Verstappen, Russell remains second priority, despite being their current number one. It's a strange dynamic. He's the driver in the spotlight, but someone else holds the flashlight. There's no public panic from Russell, but behind the scenes, there's understandable frustration. He's reportedly aware of how quickly the landscape could change, how a single phone call or mid-season shift could determine whether he's leading a championship contender or searching for a seat. The unsettling truth is that Russell could be the odd man out in a power move that has little to do with his own merit. His future hinges not on performance, but on politics. Russell isn't powerless, but he isn't in full control either. In this bizarre twist of fate, his best strategy may be patience, hoping that Mercedes' flirtation with Verstappen remains just that. Until then, he's a top-tier talent, waiting for the world around him to make a move. Part 5. Toto Wolff's Dilemma: Loyalty or Opportunity? Toto Wolff faces a decision that would test any team principal's leadership. Reward loyalty and consistency with George Russell, or take a moonshot at signing Max Verstappen? On one hand, Russell has earned his keep. He's stepped into Hamilton's shoes, delivered strong results, and shown the maturity of a future world champion. On the other, Verstappen is the reigning king of Formula One, with a ceiling so high that even Mercedes' best might struggle to match it. So what does the Wolff do now? From a pure performance perspective, it makes sense to wait and see. If Verstappen becomes available, Mercedes owes it to themselves to explore the option. Wolff has openly said he would be failing in his duties not to at least assess Max's status. And let's be honest, if Mercedes has even a 5% chance of getting Verstappen, that might be enough to hold the line on Russell's deal. But it's not that simple. There's a human cost to indecision. Russell has trusted Mercedes for years. He came up through their system, delivered when loaned to Williams, and hasn't faltered since joining the Works team. Leaving him dangling while they chase Verstappen sends a complicated message. It risks morale, loyalty, and long-term cohesion. But then again, championship-winning teams are built on difficult choices, not sentimentality. Wolff is navigating a tightrope. Go all in on Russell, and they might miss the Verstappen window. Pursue Verstappen too hard, and they might alienate Russell, or worse, lose him. The line between strategic brilliance and overplaying your hand is razor thin. And right now, every second that ticks without a contract is a sign that Wolff is still weighing the cost of it. Part 6. Red Bull's strategic risks. Red Bull might look like they hold all the cards, but behind the scenes, the Verstappen clause has put them in a vulnerable position. If Max chooses to walk, or even hints that he might, Red Bull has a serious problem, because unlike other teams, they don't have a ready-made replacement. And when you lose a generational talent, scrambling won't be enough. This is where the George Russell equation starts to come into play. Red Bull knows that if Verstappen activates his exit clause or opts for a sabbatical, they can't be caught off guard. They'll need someone who is not only fast and experienced, but also marketable and mentally strong enough to fill Max's shoes. And right now, there's arguably no better candidate than Russell. But here's the dilemma. Red Bull can't make a preemptive move unless they are almost certain Verstappen is leaving. Tossing out a multi-time world champion on a maybe is not just risky, it could be catastrophic. The smart play? Quietly sound out Russell's camp, test the waters, and prepare for every scenario. But even that could backfire if word gets out and Verstappen feels Red Bull is losing confidence in him. It's a strategic chessboard where every piece matters, and Red Bull's move, or lack of one, could shape not just their future, but the entire grids. If Verstappen goes, Red Bull can't afford to hesitate. But if they jump too soon, they could damage their relationship with Max beyond repair. The margin for error is vanishingly small, and their ability to read Verstappen's mind might be the most important skill they need right now. Part 7, Aston Martin's silent ambitions. While most of the Formula One world is fixated on Red Bull and Mercedes, there's another contender lurking in the shadows, Aston Martin. Quietly, patiently, they're watching the Verstappen situation unfold, and according to paddock whispers, they're more interested than they let on. Officially, Aston Martin has made no bold statements, but insiders suggest they've been positioning themselves for a potential move in 2027, possibly even sooner if the stars align. It's no secret that Aston Martin wants to elevate its status from upper midfield to title contender. They've invested heavily in facilities, hired big-name technical talent, and made aggressive moves in the driver market before, most notably with Fernando Alonso. But Alonso is nearing the twilight of his career. If Verstappen were to become available, especially during a transitional season like 2026, Aston Martin could become a serious player. There's also the possibility that Alonso himself might decide to step back, either voluntarily or as part of a wider team strategy. Some believe he could take on an ambassadorial role, freeing up a seat just in time for Verstappen. While this might sound speculative, in Formula One, where multi-year plans shape single decisions, it's far from fantasy. For Aston Martin, the key is timing. They don't have the leverage Red Bull or Mercedes possess right now, but if Verstappen is disillusioned with his current trajectory and open to building something new, Aston Martin's ambition and their deep-pocketed backers might become surprisingly persuasive. One thing's certain, they're not out of this race. They're just waiting for the right moment to strike. Part 8, the left field scenarios nobody talks about. Everyone talks about Verstappen staying with Red Bull or jumping to Mercedes, but what if he does neither? What if Max Verstappen, still in his prime, takes a sabbatical? It's a scenario that's rarely discussed, but insiders haven't ruled it out. If Verstappen becomes disillusioned with the competitiveness of Red Bull or dissatisfied with his options elsewhere, he could simply choose to sit out the 2026 season. It's a bold idea, but one that holds weight for a driver already with multiple titles and nothing left to prove. A sabbatical would throw the driver market into absolute chaos. Red Bull would need to replace their star immediately. Mercedes might hesitate, unsure if Verstappen will return. Other teams would scramble to fill gaps created by his absence or sudden reappearance. And George Russell's fate could shift dramatically, either securing his seat at Mercedes by default or being left in limbo if Red Bull suddenly eyes him as a stopgap. This scenario underscores the unpredictability of Verstappen's position. He's not just a driver, he's a catalyst. If he pauses his career, the entire landscape of Formula One changes overnight. Teams would rethink development strategies, sponsors would start asking questions, and young drivers could get unexpected shots at glory. The left field outcomes are hard to plan for, but impossible to ignore. And in the world of elite racing, where psychology matters as much as performance, a move like this could actually be Verstappen's most powerful play. Control the timing, shake the system, and return only when the pieces fall exactly where he wants them. That's not just power, it's leverage on a whole new level. Part 9, Russell's backup plan, from elite to midfield. It's a harsh reality, but one George Russell has to consider. What happens if everything goes wrong? If Mercedes signs Verstappen and Red Bull looks elsewhere, Russell could be left scrambling. And while it sounds unthinkable for one of the grid's top performers, the unforgiving nature of Formula One makes it a real possibility. In that worst-case scenario, Russell may need to look beyond the top 3 teams and toward the midfield. One name that keeps resurfacing is Alpine. The team, based in Enstone, has been on a long, slow rebuild. It's not a title contender today, but with the upcoming regulation changes in 2026, the team sees an opportunity to leap forward. Russell, who has a connection to team boss Oliver Oakes from his junior days, could find a stable and competitive home there, especially as Alpine is set to become a Mercedes engine customer. That link could ease a difficult transition. Of course, going from Mercedes to Alpine would feel like a step back, but it might be Russell's best option if he's squeezed out of the top-tier shuffle. He's too talented to sit out, and Alpine offers something many teams don't: an upward trajectory and room for growth. In a grid reshuffling due to Verstappen's uncertain future, that could be enough. Russell wouldn't be the first elite driver to take a temporary detour through the midfield, and if he plays it right, it might not be a setback, it could be a setup for a stronger comeback once the dust settles. But getting there means accepting that sometimes, even the best drivers don't get to write their own story. Part 10 is about the driver market's game of musical chairs. In the end, Formula One's driver market is less about speed and more about timing. As the Verstappen saga unfolds, it's clear that every driver, every team boss, and every contract negotiation is locked in a tense game of musical chairs. One move triggers another, and nobody wants to be the one left standing when the music stops. Max Verstappen holds the key. If he stays with Red Bull, the market stabilizes. Russell likely stays at Mercedes, and the big pieces fall into place. But if Max activates his brake clause, or worse, takes a sabbatical, everything becomes volatile. Suddenly, Red Bull needs a new leader, Mercedes rethinks its strategy, and the entire midfield shifts to accommodate the fallout. George Russell stands at the center of this chaos. His performance justifies a top seat, but his contract status leaves him vulnerable. He wants to stay at Mercedes. It's the team that shaped him, nurtured him, and turned him into a winner. But even loyalty has limits, especially when the clock is ticking and other teams start knocking. As for Toto Wolff and the rest of the grid, their strategies come down to risk. Do they lock in what they know or gamble on what might be? That's the tension hanging over every paddock conversation this season. One thing is certain, the outcome of this game won't just shape the 2025 grid. It will influence team dynamics, sponsor decisions, and championship trajectories for years to come. And for now, all eyes remain fixed on Verstappen. Silent, unpredictable, and entirely in control.